Hello, I'm Sandra Branch of Senior Women Sharing Wisdom. Today we are highlighting our sisters. In this segment of Highlighting Our Sisters, I am interviewing a fantastic woman, Marie McKenzie. She's our sister and she's amazing. Come on in and listen. Well, hello. How are you today, Marie McKenzie?
I am doing great, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. I've been looking at your posts in our group, Senior Women Sharing Wisdom, and I have been excited about this day to come and have this interview with you. So, thank you so much for being here. And
Um,
I want to ask you how you're doing.
I'm doing great. My
Wonderful.
house is under construction, but thank God I'm able to do it, and the dust will pass.
That's right. That's right, it will. All right. Well, I would like to let everybody know a little bit about you. I'm going to read your bio. So, this is Marie McKenzie, once silenced by the aftermath of sexual assault. Marie McKenzie has devoted her life to empowering women to overcome their own sexual assault triggers and find intimacy with their spouses. Because of this, she founded the International Sexual Assault Recovery Institute with over 2.5 decades of experience as a registered nurse, including her role as a sexual assault nurse examiner in the clinical and community settings. Marie blends her professional expertise with the tools and techniques that facilitated her own healing journey. Her mission is to reassure survivors that they are never alone and that the path to resolving their triggers is not only feasible, but empowering. Renowned for her award winning, best selling memoir, Things That Keep Me Up at Night, Marie chronicles her personal odyssey from sexual assault at the age of 11 to her triumphant transformation. Her book serves as a beacon of hope, encouraging others to find their voices, share their stories, seek support, and embrace a life imbued with purpose. Marie doesn't shy away from her calling, proudly declaring, I guide women in conquering their sexual assault triggers and rekindling intimacy within their relationships. When Marie is not working with women on their journey, she collaborates with various organizations dedicated to helping those affected by diverse traumas. She enjoys the vibrant life of Orlando, Florida, alongside her husband, George. So, again, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, God is good.
Yes, he is. And you're the only one that has approached me or that I have been in contact with since I've been doing this group that takes on this subject. And I
Mhm.
believe that it's very, very necessary. Although we are senior women, 50 and over, a lot of us have had an experience with sexual assault. And some of it when we were young, but some as older women. I did see a post. A woman did say in the group something
Yes.
about that. Did you see that?
Yes.
And I
When
appreciate
she was older, yes.
her doing that because, as I've said, it's hard for anybody, and I know you know that dealing
Yes.
with people, but especially when you become an older woman and you've got this persona and everything, and I'm sure that it would be very, very hard for a lot of women our age to come out and say, I've experienced this. So,
I can only imagine how shocking it was. I mean, shocking for anyone,
yes,
especially someone of her age and,
absolutely.
even as a child. But I appreciate the fact that she was very transparent and
Mm,
sharing with the group that she was assaulted.
And I hope that more women will be encouraged to be transparent because that's the only way you can really heal.
And most of us have remained silent,
Mhm.
suffering, because not only we do not share it with the family when it happened, we don't share it with friends, and we don't seek professional support to heal from this.
Mhm.
So, and we may suppress, and then one day
Yeah,
it attacks with a vengeance. And if you don't have adequate coping skills, you're overwhelmed.
that,
And, God only knows how you may react when that happens,
that's true. No matter how strong you are,
no matter how strong you are.
you have to understand that we're made of flesh.
Yes.
So we have to take care of ourselves mentally. And this is a thing that really affects you mentally.
Yes. It
I
affects all areas of our life, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally,
agree.
the whole body. Yes.
Yes. And as a senior woman myself, from my background, I'm learning so much from this group and from this setting and from people like you. I don't know. I think that I'm a little naive. And so it's it's all like that for me. I'm loving all of this. It's
Yes, sometimes when I do research and I see numbers and read other people's story, it's traumatic, but eye-opening at the same time. And like, you're not alone. There's so many people going through this. So, and healing is possible.
Mhm,
So many evil is out there, but there's so much good also.
that's true. And you've been through it.
Yes.
And I believe that that's something that helps those that you're talking to or trying to help. It helps them to open up because they know
Yes.
you're dealing with someone who knows.
Right.
You've got statistics and education on the subject, but you've got personal experience. So you know how they feel about trust and all those things.
Yes. And although each person experiences it
Mhm.
and it manifests differently for all of us.
Yes, yes.
So our experience is different, the way we react is different. You know, I'm coming from a place of experience, and
Mhm,
I know I've learned some of the ways it manifests in different people.
mhm,
We don't all have the same reaction, but some are similar.
mhm. Okay. Well, I want to get right into it because I don't want to hold you
For
too
me,
much.
this is a 365, 24/7 subject.
Yeah.
I was muted for a long time, never went public until I was almost 60, although I disclosed to an aunt in my 40s.
Mhm.
And once I started talking, I never shut up, and I don't intend to. So
That's amazing. There are some things that the last time we talked and we had our little session, um, I hadn't admitted some of those. That is the first time. Uh,
and it's not unusual when I am on a forum like that,
yeah,
people are disclosing for the first time. I
absolutely.
remember at one of my talks, it was the moderator of the program, and she just blurted it out at the end that she's a survivor.
Mm.
And she's like, when I go home, I'll have some explaining to do because I've never told them.
Yes.
Yes.
One of my cousins was in on that session. My cousin, when I looked, she looked like, because she didn't know that I had gone through that. And,
Wow.
that was a step for me.
Yes.
I just want to
But how
encourage.
does it feel though that you finally spoke up and your family knows?
It feels like a weight has.
Exactly.
Now, my sister knew,
Right.
and she's one of our women in the group also, but I've never spoken publicly about that. And it was somewhat,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm glad. And I want to encourage anybody else that, is wanting to get over this to just do it. Just do it.
Yeah. Just do it. And
Yeah,
it's hard.
it is.
It is hard, especially if you have held it in for a long time. It is hard. It's not easy for anyone, whether it be new or something if you withheld for years.
That's true. I'll be 70 my next birthday. And I just said that, you know? So yeah, that was a big deal.
Yes.
I'm glad
And
I
there are women who were older at the time when they disclosed.
Mhm.
Think of those who never disclose.
Yeah,
Sexual violence is one of the most underreported crime.
that's true.
So just think about that.
Mhm.
The vast majority of people who have been sexually assaulted, and a lot of them do not disclose.
True. You know, I have to tell you, since we've decided to do this, I have been bombarded with information that has just come to me like coincidentally, it seems, but it was meant to come to me.
It was meant.
It really was. I've talked with people not going into this subject, but I've found out a lot of things about um, culture and areas of the country at certain times, like in the 30s, 40s, 20s, 30s, and 40s in the South. And if you watch the movie, The Color Purple,
Hmm.
same situation, we had no voice,
Oh
who
no,
tell? It's going on everywhere.
it
Every
still exists now,
in the family, you have
21st century.
yes, people have more of an out. They can report it to the police or whatever. But back then, who were they going to tell? And so some of those women are older now and ready to talk. So I'm just happy. I'm happy that I know you and that we're doing this.
Yes, I'm so happy too.
Yes,
Yes, that we're helping women who need to
absolutely.
hear this. Yes.
Well, I have a question for you. Tell me, what are the sexual assault statistics? Give me some of those statistics. How?
Statistics are staggering.
Mm,
1 in every 4 women have been sexually assaulted in her lifetime.
mm,
1 in every 10 men have been sexually assaulted
mm,
in their lifetime.
mm,
In the United States, every 68 seconds, every 68 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes, that someone is a child.
oh, mercy.
Yes. And to think that 80 to 90% of perpetrators are known to the victims. So it's not roaming the streets. They pray where they're trusted.
Mhm.
In our homes, schools, churches, and the communities. Yes. And the majority of the time, it's shoved under the rug.
Mhm. Mhm. That's true. As a matter of fact, today a conversation was going on about in the religious context. Um, it's a sad thing that people can, especially those in leadership, can get up there and say what thus says the Lord and do these things with no regard as to the Lord.
Yes.
And so it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing. And you don't want to become paranoid, but we do need to be informed and to be watchful.
Yes. And the sad thing about that is there are so many victims in the church, and there are so many adults and leaders in the church who are aware of what's going on, and they stand beside the perpetrator and shun the victim.
Yes.
And some victims do not have an alternative. They have to go to church because family obligation or their children. So they're re-victimized again and triggered again.
I remember seeing some movies about people who have gone ahead and reported it, and then they're treated like um,
Yeah.
traitor in court.
Yep.
You know, and
It,
such a sad thing. And so many women, because of that, just decide don't say anything.
yes. And unfortunately that do happen more than you think.
Mhm.
Women who are bold enough to report and not being supported or accused of lying. There's currently a movie, I think it's on Netflix, a documentary victim suspect, this young lady who had reported her rape and was accused of lying by the police and was actually arrested.
Find that.
Yes, she was actually arrested for lying. So that's that's why we have to keep talking about this.
Yes, we
That's
do.
why we have to keep bringing awareness.
Yes, we do.
As I said before, for me, this is 365, 24/7 conversation.
God bless you. I'm thankful for you. Thank
Yes, and yes,
And so, with all those statistics, there are a lot of people that need help.
yeah.
They need to know how to resolve the trauma of it all. Show me some ways. Tell me some ways that the trauma can be resolved.
There's a book that I read, The Body Keeps the Score. It reminds me of many, many years ago when I was growing up and even in my adulthood, I was plagued with severe abdominal pain. Many doctors, no diagnosis. I was eventually diagnosed with irritable bowel. That's like, we don't know what's wrong with you. It's irritable bowel. Yes. So a lot of medical, psychological, physical symptoms. It post-traumatic stress, triggers, diabetes,
Ooh,
heart disease, high blood pressure. Yes. That's unresolved stress skills.
yes.
Yes. And unresolved trauma due to sexual assault it just wears on you mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You may have in your relationships the wife who's pulling away from her husband because she's been triggered.
Mm.
Could have been married for years and everything was going fine till one day something brings back the memory of the horrific incident. Shows up in lack of self-love, not caring for yourself, because the body that was violated doesn't feel right. You don't want to be in it. You actually feel like there is not enough soap to make you clean again. Yeah, so those are some of the ways that it shows up. Unable to communicate your boundaries, unable to establish boundaries or communicate them, telling people what you will accept and what you will not accept, even a spouse, because maybe when you were abused, you were told to shut up, keep it a secret. So you're still muted by
Mhm.
the effects of this trauma.
And it also once again shows our resilience that we can get through that. We
Yes.
can. We can get through it. And it sometimes I'm sure seems and feels like this is insurmountable. I'll never get over this, but it can happen.
Yes, by the grace of God, we can.
Of God. So
Just got to take that first step
I have to take that.
and commit and keep going. Yes.
And so you help women to figure out ways to resolve the trauma that they've been dealing with in their relationships and just throughout life. In,
Yes.
in your program, what kind of is it a one-on-one? What do you do?
Well, my client, first I get them on a call. So we discuss where they are, what happened to them, and then customize a program specific to that individual. So it all depends on what the individuals need. But first we have a conversation
Good.
to get to know each other and where we're at, even if we're fit for each other, because not everyone who comes to me end up working with me. I may not be the right coach for that person.
And what I'm loving is the privacy and
It's a safe, confidential space.
that's great. The effect that it has on health. I was just really unaware of those things. I knew it affected you emotionally and mentally, but I did not know.
In every way. The mind and the body is totally connected.
Wow. Oh my. I've got some
Yes.
check up. Honestly, this was new to me. So yes, I'm looking for resolution. And thank you for
You're
this.
welcome. Yes.
So, what are some triggers that people have?
So the triggers may be a smell, something that reminds you of the perpetrator, a cologne, a sound, could be a music, a song that was playing at the time when you were assaulted. I remember that listening to this broadcast, and this young lady was talking about the time when she was raped, and how she froze and she just focused on a chair that was in the next corner.
Mhm.
So every time she walks into a room and there is a chair in a corner,
Mhm.
that was triggering for her.
Wow.
So it could be like, at the time when the person was raped, they had to deal with the police, calling 911, things like that, triggering. Could be getting intimate with a spouse. The embrace of a spouse, take you back to that dark place. So it's different for different people, and it involves all the senses.
Mhm. Wow, I remember years ago, I'm remembering so many things now. An individual told me it was her husband who, in her relationship with her husband, when he drank alcohol
Hmm.
and intimate, it just would throw her into a trigger.
Wow. One lady I heard of had been married for years and had children, and she was triggered one day at the gynecologist.
Oh my.
Yeah, so violently the police had to be called.
Hmm.
Yes, and that was when her husband knew of her past sexual assault because she had never disclosed.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yes. And she had buried it. She was doing fine. And then this one day, out of the blue. So when we repress these trauma and they stay unresolved, one day they just may explode. And you're not thinking of it. You may have, suppressed it so deeply that you even forgot that it happened,
Mhm.
and out of the blue.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened to me. I forgot. I, I I didn't remember it until I was grown. And then I would only remember flashbacks, little things. And the older I got, the more I remembered. So, yeah, this is, yeah, this is
Yeah, and that's common from the readings I've done, that especially in childhood, it's repressed.
Mhm.
And that's one of the ways the body protects us. It
Yeah.
may be so traumatic that the memory is repressed so the person can move on. And then later it unfolds, like you said, little flashes, or something happened and boom. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some more stuff too, but I don't want to just tell everything on here. This is
That's okay.
your interview, but I do need to talk to you in private. So, okay then. So, regaining or experiencing intimacy in your relationship after SA or after sexual assault. When you're talking with a woman who has experienced this and is showing up in her relationship, is it good to have conversation or sessions with the husband also?
Your case, I've never coached a spouse of the survivor. However, that does happen, when the spouse is brought into the session, because I've read about that and I've heard of from other people that the spouse, because working together to support the survivor, and teaching them how to communicate with each other, you know.
I'm sure that there are some spouses when they find out that their spouse has dealt with this, it gives them a different viewpoint of their spouse. Has that ever occurred?
I do not have any direct knowledge, but I've heard of experiences of survivors who have had experiences of spouses pushing back. Also, more so, spouses who embrace them more and are ready to offer support. So that's most of what happens.
When you have a good relationship, you have a spouse that really loves you.
Someone you can communicate with and who will take that journey alongside with you.
Sometimes I suppose it will uncover the fact that this spouse isn't isn't for you.
Right.
They can't be supportive of you.
Exactly. And I spoke with one lady who her husband was, that's so long time ago, just get over it.
Mm.
Yes. And that's hurtful because there's no just get over it. There's no time frame,
Mm.
you know. Healing is not linear. You know, sometimes you have a good day, sometimes you have a bad day. And our journeys are all different. So there's no get over it.
That's right. I'm just so happy that there is a way out now. I have a girlfriend who has a ministry called There Is a Way Out.
There is a way out.
Different things that we go through, but I'm so happy that there is a way out of this situation.
Sexual assault is not a life sentence.
Yes, I appreciate.
You are not your trauma.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So, can you share some tips for overcoming these sexual assault triggers?
Yeah, and
you mentioned a
I'll
few.
just share a couple. One of the techniques that I use and that has worked for me is grounding. So like whenever I feel triggered, I remind myself that I'm safe. I'll take stock of where I am, like identify like 3 to 5 things that are present, what I can see, what I can smell, if I can taste, touch. So I know I'm not in the same place I was when this horrible event happened. And affirmations, you're safe, you're safe.
Yes, yes, affirmations are good for
Yes.
many things that we have to deal with. I think that affirmations that you have posted in art form are good. They're there for you to see at any time.
Yes, or even little post-it notes.
Yes,
I
yes.
just had to take mine off the mirror because they were shattering my mirror to repair my bathroom.
I think
Yes,
those that are done artfully, and
yeah,
it's a
exactly. And I have different color ones.
absolute.
Yes, so I
Yes,
can see them every day. And yes,
and that'll keep it on your mind that you are.
yes.
I am safe.
And another thing that I do a gratitude journal every night, and I've been doing that for years. So no matter how bad my days, I find at least 3 things for which I'm grateful for, and write that down at the end of the day.
That's good.
Yes, I don't think about the bad things or things that didn't happen the way I wanted them to. I just write down 3 things for which I'm grateful.
That's good for mental health, period.
Exactly.
For life, period.
Exactly.
We need that to just get through, you know?
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. So now, I had never heard of sexual assault advocacy. So you told me kind of how you do it. Um, and I guess we know the why, but you can just reiterate that. Why sexual assault advocacy?
My why. I'm a survivor. And becoming a registered nurse brought me into the path of survivors who come to the hospital through the emergency room where I was a nurse. So in the beginning, I assisted the physicians in collecting the evidence and maintaining chain of custody. You can't let it out of your sight until the police gets it and everything. And then in 2014, I got trained to be a sexual assault nurse examiner. What that means is that now I'm the one conducting the interviews, doing all the exams and collecting the evidence all by myself. And also it means you can be called into court to testify, which I've which I've done. Uh, um, so and initially, I had not sought treatment for myself. I was not working on myself. Yes, I've been through depression, suicidal ideation, and I was embracing these survivors, encouraging them, get support, follow up with their therapist. We give them, they're assigned an advocate who will help them through navigating the legal system and their doctor's appointments. But then I wasn't doing anything for myself. So through working with survivors, I came across organizations and people who support survivors. And I aligned myself with them and gathered tools that I use to help me to heal, thrive, and survive. So once I started that, I started advocating for sexual assault survivors and never stop. I'm not stopping.
Thing. I, so many of us have felt hopeless and just getting by and smiling every day and just
Oh, I was very good at that.
yeah, yeah, me too. I have a big smile, and um, I'm just so happy that we don't have to hide anymore.
Yes.
We don't have to hide. We have a choice.
Yes.
We can get help for this and overcome it and become empowered.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Empowered. I love that word.
Yes, yes. So we're going to get all your information and we're going to make sure all the ladies in SWSW have your information. We're going to make sure that you have a copy of this video so that you can share um, and hopefully gain others the trust that they can be assisted in this.
To heal and thrive and survive and go beyond the surviving because, step into your rich and meaningful life. Life is great. Whether you live by yourself or with others, you can have a vibrant life.
Yes, and you'll see layers of yourself that were never apparent, that could never be released or to come out because it was suppressed by this.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, sometimes it's a job. You can't move on in your job because you're weighted down by this unresolved trauma. So it's not just in relationships, could be a relationship with yourself, not just with others, your job, and
Mm-hmm.
all areas of your life it affects.
Right. Wow, this is amazing. So, who are your clients? I mean, how do your clients find you, or how do you find them?
So through broadcasts like these podcasts, and I share my gift, just have them go to sarecoverygift.com and I'll send you all the information you need after you download
Okay, well,
sarecoverygift.com.
I'm going to list that in the comments so that people will know how to reach you.
Yes, sarecoverygift.com, and I'll send you all the contact information that you need.
All right. I don't know if I already asked this, but can you share about someone that you've helped? I think that, we've kind of touched on a lot of different things, but just give me one example of someone you've helped.
I'll call her Sarah. When I first met Sarah, she was just, I won't say a mess, but she was having trouble with intimacy with her husband. They've been married for a long time, 15 years, 3 children. And then one day she recoiled when he attempted to embrace her. She was referred to me by a friend and she called right away. So we got on a call. I evaluated, we got to know each other, found out where she was and, if she had ever had therapy and some of the things that worked that she was trying and what didn't work for her. And we went through some of my sessions, some of the techniques and tools I shared with her. And she's on her way to embracing intimacy with her husband. Yes, right back on track.
Oh,
Communicating with her husband, establish boundaries and communicating boundaries.
that's wonderful.
Yes,
Wonderful. A good success story.
yes.
Now, I had three questions. The first one is, does sexual assault in childhood, when you experienced it in childhood, does that sometimes, because as we raise our children, sometimes you want to look for certain things because you want to make sure they're safe. So a child that has been sexually molested or experienced sexual assault, sometimes is it true that that child becomes a little bit more promiscuous? Is that a sign that a parent can depend on to focus in a little bit more on that child as to what's going on with them in this area?
Yes, a 2017 study by the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress confirms that a large number of childhood sexual assault survivors do engage in promiscuous behaviors. And that may be for different reasons. And one of the reasons is they attach that to their self-worth. The perpetrator may have told them, oh, because you were so attractive. So they see that, yes, that, they attach it to they have a warped idea about self-worth. Either they were abused because they're attractive and deemed desirable, or they use it as a mean of punishment for themselves because now they don't feel worthy.
That's something. Um, I said that because I had girls, and I was always looking and trying to help them not to have that happen to them. So young women, we have some 50 years old in the group, but younger women who are raising children need need to understand what to look for, not just say, oh, that you've been sexually molested, but these are some tools that can help them in protecting their children.
Yes.
And
Yeah, another thing too, maladaptive coping skills, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, paranoia, lack of trust,
yeah.
not being able to foster meaningful relationships.
Mhm.
Promiscuity sometimes is used as a mean of numbing, don't want to get close to anyone, don't want to feel.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. Um,
Mhm.
I'd like to know also, do sexually assaulted children ever become adults who sexually assault? Or adolescents, do they begin, do some of them begin to sexually assault others of their peers, children or young?
Most sexually abused children do not molest or sexually abuse anyone. While it is discovered that sexually abused children, boys do molest more than their peers of not being sexually abused, there is no evidence to suggest that it's true that because they're sexually abused, they grow up to abuse others. Think that most sexual abuse victims are female, yet 90% of perpetrators are male. So it's not true that they'll grow up to be
I would
sexually abused.
like in those societies where it's so prevalent and people do it and they get away with it. And so once it's done, it's like it wasn't it wasn't anything to get in trouble for or to talk about. Everybody does it.
It's like generational
Yeah.
curse. Yes. And
And
that does happen in communities where it's embraced. The father does it, the sons, yes, and nobody intervenes or protect the victims.
and then so many times it's accepted,
Yes,
and instead of looked at as, oh wow, that happened to me.
yes.
Sometimes
I,
people begin to accept it. Oh, everybody does that.
yeah, I think it's like that's like a cultural thing in
Mhm.
certain communities.
Yeah. Wow, that is rough. That's rough. And at least in America, we do have some things going on like what you're doing and the justice system and so forth. But in so many other countries, even
Yes,
in certain areas in the United States, it's
yes.
hush hush. But
Yeah, certain areas in the United States and in our own communities, because a lot of time you discover certain things happening in your backyard and it's like, really?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. This has been a topic of conversation with me and several people over the last weeks. Ever since I knew I was going to do this with you, it just kept coming up. And so um, I'm learning so much, so very much. Now, here's one I really want to know about because it happened to me. Can memories of sexual assault in childhood be suppressed? Well, we already talked about that, like the lady in the gynecology office, the one
Yes.
thing. Um, what I remember a person telling me that they were being intimate with their spouse, and I don't know. I guess she couldn't catch her breath or something, and she fought him off like he was choking her, but he wasn't. And he was surprised. What? But she just couldn't breathe. And so, she didn't know at that time that anything had ever happened to her. And so for a long time, she just didn't know where that came from. Is it true that sometimes you can look after you come to grips with it, that you can look back and see, wow, that's why I did that, and that's why that happened. And you start piecing together to come up with the picture. This really happened to me.
Yes. From reading, I have read stories like that of people who like got glimpses of little memories, a chapter here, a chapter there, and then eventually came together.
Yes.
Some work with therapists to put the pieces together and, why am I seeing this?
Yes.
I read a story from this, I forgot the name of the book and the author, but he said he was with his parents. He was in his teens and he was with his parents in the back of the car. And the car had stopped at a stoplight and he was just looking over. And then these flashes started coming to him. And eventually he remembered that a babysitter had been molesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there are many, many stories out there.
There are. And when you talked about men being molested also, or boys, I remember, I don't know if it was Oprah Winfrey or maybe she had Tyler Perry on, and the audience was
Yes,
full of
she had a
men.
group of men.
Yes.
Yes. And I
And
remember a friend of mine told me that day that her husband watched it. And
mhm,
he's a childhood sexual assault survivor who had never disclosed. He was in his 60s and he
yeah,
had never disclosed. So there are a lot of men out there, lots more than we know.
yeah. Well, I'm just happy that things like what you're doing, and people are talking more about it, and
Yes.
um,
And more men are talking about it.
yeah, yeah,
Yes. And
and
there are more men who are supporting women who were abused.
that's
Yes.
good. Very good, very good. And then there's one other thing. I remember around the time that Mike Tyson, um, the situation with the girl in the room and all that stuff. Um, and they talked about it so much that a lot of people didn't know. Oh, if you say no, because if you say no, then anything further than that is rape. And so
Yes.
it was being defined, and people were learning what it really was. We think, well, I've never been assaulted because, yes, you were. Someone
Yes.
went ahead after you said no. You were.
Yes.
So,
And even if you didn't say no, that
yes,
does not mean consent.
right. That's right.
If you did not say no, that doesn't mean consent. Remember, sometimes when you're so surprised, there are certain reactions that the body do.
Yes.
Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or flop.
Yes.
So freezing is one of the most common reactions sexual assault victims have. They just freeze up. Fawn is when they try to become friendly or and talk the perpetrator out of abusing them. And flop, they're just immobile, cannot move. That's not consent.
Mhm.
If you don't say no, you didn't say yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
consent is more than just yes or no, it's a conversation. Because I may agree to kiss you while I'm in the car,
mhm.
but that's as far as I want to go. If I don't say, if I, when we get to the bedroom, I don't say anything or agree to what's going on, then you did not get consent.
Right. That's right.
You did not get consent. And I spoke with a young lady, she's in her 30s, early 40s, and she said it's things that happened to her so many times growing up, she thought it was normal.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Thought it was normal. Oh, it's just a misunderstanding. She was being raped and not realizing it was rape until in college she was sharing it with one of her friends, and the friend said, "You were raped."
Mhm.
Yes. She confronted the perpetrator and he cried, and she was like, "Oh, he's sorry," until she learned he had done it to many of her friends. Yes.
Oh my. I went with someone to confront a perpetrator, and it was just the three of us. And right in front of her, he said, "I didn't do that," and I knew he did that. And I looked at her, and she looked like devastated. I mean,
Yeah.
and then when he looked at her and saw me, he said, "Okay, okay, okay," but he never once said, "I'm sorry." And I've heard that he's done this over and over again to other people.
Was never confronted. I
Never.
had a victim who came in and she was more angry at her friends than the perpetrator. Why? They had been sexually assaulted by him and none of them had disclosed. She would not have been in his company if she had known.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I have this one experience. This is just such a subject. I was at church one time, and I think we were talking about forgiveness, and I I people say I forgive but not forget. I think that they said something about that, and I think that's perfectly fine
Yes.
to forgive but not to forget. And if you decide that this person has stolen from you, abused uh, your child, or whatever, you have you can forgive them by all means, but you have the right to protect yourself and your children from being in their presence.
Exactly. You can forgive. You don't have to continue a relationship with that person. That's not what forgiveness means.
That's right. Now
Yes,
that's
that's not what forgiveness means.
people need.
Forgiveness is for you. So you can move on, you know. As one of my friends put it releases you of the burden that others place on you.
Right. That's right.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
you don't have to be associated with that person
yes.
or a family member.
But in
No,
a religious setting, they were saying that would be unforgiving if you uh, like for instance somebody in your congregation, in your church congregation, that has done this or that, even if they went to jail and paid for it and came back, and you choose to not be in their presence, not have
that's
your children sit next to them, things like that. I think that's very appropriate.
that's totally fine. It's you have the prerogative to not have that person in your space. You even have the right to change church.
Yes, you do. That's
Yes.
the solution. That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
and not being associated with that family if it's family member. You don't have to be in their presence.
And that's in the news a lot lately.
Yeah.
And religion. And so I just want everybody to know that this is not right, and
No,
there's
it is not right.
help for you. And
Yeah, so that person is being re-triggered every time. Yeah.
why don't you come to church? Why don't you come to? Some people lose faith in God because the church is allowing this to happen, and some of them won't report it to the authorities, meaning that they are um, as guilty as the perpetrator.
Oh, you mean the people who are aware and don't say anything? Yes.
Sometimes
Yes.
leadership in the church knows that this one has been doing that, just like in the school system or anywhere, if you know that a child's being abused or anything, you must report it.
Yes.
You must report
Mandatory reporting for the school and some areas of the church.
it.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I just want everybody to know you have an advocate. You have a way out. You
Yes.
have to carry this burden. Um, and I'm so happy that you're doing this. Thank you. Thank you.
And if your perpetrator is in the church, I want you to remember the devil knows the way to church. Not
Yeah.
because a person is in the church, that doesn't say they're saved, that doesn't say they're Christian. And you cannot blame God for the actions of man. God is not a man.
That's right.
That should not affect your relationship with God. It affects your relationship with the individual and the people who are complicit, but it shouldn't affect your relationship.
A person can change, but I don't know that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
between them and God. If they
And
choose
that's good for them,
him, but
but I don't need to be associated with them. No.
okay.
Good for you. Congratulations.
But I want to be safe right here.
Yes, I'm protecting my peace.
That's
Yes.
right. Well, I thank you for this. I thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Yes, I'm glad we did.
And I'm going
And
to,
this is great.
yes, I'm going to get this posted as soon as possible. I love these kind of conversations. And with the time ahead to think and get more information and questions, this has been really good. And I thank you for consenting to do this with me.
Yes, anytime. I'd be happy to come back at any
I
time.
would love for you too. Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we should keep doing this.
Yes, we should. We
We
should.
should keep doing this. Yes. It warms my heart to talk about this, because so many more people need help.
Absolutely.
There are so many suffering women, children, boys, men, and I know we're focused on women, and there are so many hurting women, young and old.
Yes.
This is happening right now. We're sitting here having this conversation, and there is someone out there abusing a child, a woman, a boy, a girl.
Imagine somebody abusing an elderly person. It's just,
And that's what one of the ladies asked in the group. Why would someone rape an older woman if they're not going to get any enjoyment?
yeah.
And yeah, that's what I'm like. It's not about enjoyment. Rape is about power and control.
Mhm.
There are many married men who rape. It's
Mhm.
not about sex.
Right.
Yeah,
It's being the one in control.
yeah, it's all about control.
Wow, the mind is something else. But I'm so glad that now we know these things and we're starting to
Yes.
fight for um, ways to free people from this kind of stuff. So
So we just need to be aware and how to protect ourselves. And I know no matter what we do, sometimes we'll still become victims because they'll break in your house. They'll do, yes, but we just keep alert and, gather tools and how to keep us and our families safe.
all right. Well, I've gathered a lot of them. So
Yeah.
I'm going to end our conversation now. And once again, the 50th time, say thank you to you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I'll be seeing you in the group. Continue
Yes,
to
absolutely.
continue to.
Thanks for the group. It's amazing.
Yes, I'm just so glad that I was able to do that. When I wrote my book, I really wanted to travel and do what you're doing, but I wound up with some health problems and some other things that happened. So I had to take another route, do something else. So
Yes.
this
Maybe we can collaborate in some virtual events.
absolutely.
Yeah, because we don't have to travel and talk. Technology is, king.
Loving this.
Yes, I teach all over the country by WebEx. So
Yeah,
I'm in Florida teaching in New Hampshire,
love it. I love it.
in Jamaica. So
Mhm.
yes,
That's
we can
great.
do some events.
Okay, let's do some brainstorming.
Brainstorming, yes.
Come to me. Let me
Because
Thanks.
people are hungry for this information
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, God bless you.
for the 100th time.
And I'll be seeing you soon.
All right, you take care. Mwah.
Yeah.